It's a plush chair.
It is. Oh wow! Yeah, you
just
go all
right
the way,
all the way back.
I
Hi,
have
everybody.
the cord. You have the cordless.
Oh, that's good, because I'll be singing and dancing. I have a one thank you that I have to. Is Lily here, who makes borscht? It was
Lily.
so good. Thank you
Lily,
so much.
thank you to Lily for the
thank you.
borscht.
She fed me last night normal people borscht, which is, she had two kinds, one vegetarian and one called normal people. I had the normal people one.
Liz was normal.
And had
I was
the other person one.
Brilliant borscht.
But thank you. That was amazing. I had to personally thank you for that. All right. Hi.
Hi. So here we are in Hume Fogg, one of my very favorite places to be. I love this school and I love this auditorium. And I love you.
I love you, Anne.
We have been friends for a really long time, and this is how writer friends get to see one another. They agree to interview one another on stage, and then we get to talk.
It's the only way we've ever seen each other.
It's damn
literally
close
the
to
only.
the only
I think
way.
it is. I think there was once, but I think certainly 3 or 4 times we've managed to arrange this so that we can spend some time together.
Yeah, it's crazy. I want to start out. I have questions that I wrote, and I read them over, and they're great. They're really good questions.
Anne, you wrote them. Of course they're great.
I know, I'm prepared.
Brilliant, award-winning questions.
But I want to tell a story from our day today because it was particularly fantastic. Liz came in last night, and we had a whole day together today with our friend Jane Hamilton, who is also here, and which was even more amazing. And we went to UAL to go shopping. I went to the Parthenon and UAL, 2 places I only go when I have out-of-town guests. And Liz found a pair of shoes. They are not those shoes. They were equally amazing Christian Dior flats that were about 10% of what they had once cost.
So they were so beautiful, I was licking them in the store.
And the only problem with these unspeakably beautiful Christian Dior shoes is that they didn't fit her. And one of them did. One shoe fit fine, and the other one caused her exceeding pain. And we were in UAL, as one is, for quite a long time. And she was wearing them the whole time. And one shoe, she kept saying it felt so good, and the other one hurt just so much. And I said, well, of course you wouldn't buy them. Only an idiot would buy shoes that hurt that much. And you said...
I said, of course I'm going to buy them. And you said, you're in denial about these shoes. They don't fit you. And I said, first of all, only one needs to fit for the shoes to fit. Secondly, did you see the price? And thirdly, I'm not in denial. They're perfect for me. I'm going to marry them. We're going to have children, and they're going to stop drinking. We're going to be so happy together. Stop blocking my happiness that's waiting for me with these shoes.
I really had all day long. I thought this is what it means to be a woman. To think it's not working now.
No. It's going to be fine.
In the future,
it's going to be fine.
We're going to work it out.
We're meant to be together. And we'll work it out after I buy them, and after we get married, we'll fix everything.
So you wrote Eat, Pray, Love. Did you ever read it?
Oh, do you know what? I just read it. Because it's the 10-year anniversary. Can you believe that?
No.
A decade. In January.
Seriously?
Yeah. And so Riverhead is putting out a 10-year anniversary edition of Eat, Pray, Love, and they asked me to write the introduction. I thought I should probably read it again. And do you know, first of all, I liked it. It's a good book.
It's a good book, yeah.
And
although I haven't read it in 10 years.
the thing that struck me about it, there were a few things that struck me. One, what an incredibly lucky thing to have been able to do, to have spent a year alone traveling. What an amazing thing to have been able to do. As I was reading along, I was like, that chick is so fucking lucky. Oh, sorry, I know we're in school. But I was like, and I got suddenly, honestly, for the first time, it sunk into me the criticism of people of entitlement, and I was like, I agree. That was a very fortunate human being who got to do that. The other thing that I had forgotten was how desperately sad I was at the beginning of that story, because it ended so well that I had sort of erased the deep, deep, deep sadness from
Well,
it.
and 10 years of happiness
We'll do that.
We'll do that. We'll erase that deep sadness. This is so interesting to me because I've never read one of my books. And I'm wondering, have you read your other books? And by which I mean you read them 30 times as you're finishing and editing, copy editing. But when a book gets to the point where I can't change something, I never read it again.
Right.
So have
After
you read?
the first galleys, you never read it again?
No, never.
I don't think I ever have either. I think Eat, Pray, Love's probably the first book I sat down and I thought I would just skim it, but then I got sort of interested in the story.
I
wanted to see what happened.
No, I can really see that. That's fantastic.
Is she going to make out with Giovanni or not? I wanted to know.
But I have to say, and I am a Liz Gilbert completist. I've read and really, truly loved all of your books. And one of the books of yours that I think about the most is Pilgrims, which is your first book.
You always say that. That's
I love that book. That
you.
is a genius book. I think that is, I will go so far as to say it is up there with 9 Stories for me in terms of being a perfect and well-balanced collection. And I so often think of a story in that book as if it was a story someone had told me. But have you ever read it?
No, I've never read it.
And what year did you publish it?
1997? 1996 or 7, I think.
You should ask them to have a 20-year anniversary edition of that book, because that would be astonishing to bring that back into the bright light of the Liz Gilbert world.
The public is clamoring for it.
Clamor,
because, you know, if we did a 20-year anniversary, we could sell another 1,000 copies of it. Which would be amazing. Would double our lifetime sales of Pilgrims.
You know, I think
love
that people
book,
might
though.
look at it differently now.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It could very well be.
Just go ahead so I can ask you these questions.
Okay.
Give us an overview, because you guys got the book to come in here, so I'm assuming a lot of you haven't read the book yet. I'm sure some of you have. But just explain briefly what Big Magic is all about.
Okay, so Big Magic is a book that I've been thinking about writing for 12 years. And when I say thinking about writing, I mean every single day thinking about a book that I wanted to write about creativity. I've been living by the principles of that book my entire life. So it really is sort of my central manifesto about creativity, which I would say is a combination of extreme magical thinking and tremendous Yankee pragmatism. So it's fairy dust and it's garden soil, sort of there's nothing in the middle. It's all like either way up here or way down there. And I think the reason it took me this long to write it is because I feel like I must have felt that I needed to have a few more books under my belt before I believed I had the legitimacy and the chops to sit down and say, here's a way that you should do creativity. I think I must have needed to feel I had to prove something more to myself. So I wrote 3 books in the time that I was thinking about writing this book. And the other reason I didn't write it was because I couldn't figure out how to write it. I wasn't sure if it should be a very heavily researched academic treatise. Most of my books are very heavily researched, and so I spent years collecting hundreds of books about every aspect of creativity, the neurobiology of creativity and the psychology of creativity and the history of creativity and gender and creativity and suicide and creativity and alcoholism and creativity and culture. And I looked at that whole shelf of books one day and thought, if I have to read even one of these books, I'm going to kill myself. I don't care. And I'm proud to say there is not a single fact in Big Magic. It is a fact-free book. So I think you can either say it's completely unresearched, or you can say the research has been the 25 years I've been living by the principles that I put forth in this book. And then I finally, you know what it was, is Facebook. It was 3-4, how many people here do I know from my Facebook page? Sweeties. I love us on that page. I do. And it's a really big part of my life and my day, sort of talking on that page with all of you. And some of you may remember that 2 years ago I put a notice up and I said, I'm about to start writing this book on creativity. If you are not living out any sort of creativity in your life right now, tell me why you aren't. Let me hear all the problems, all the obstacles, so that I can discuss them all. And then many of you wrote very long, like legal lists, very intricately, of all the obstacles and all the problems and all the details. And I read every single one of those comments very carefully. And honest to God, all I saw in invisible ink through all the reasons and the obstacles was fear. Just a huge amount of fear. And so that became the central topic of the book. Let's talk about creativity and fear and how to get around it and through it and over it and under it in order to be able to bring forth the treasures that are hidden within you that I can only assume are. So,
okay, one thing that you just said, you said this is how you should. Mm-hmm. You know, I wrote this book so I can tell you this is how you should live a creative life. Yeah. Do you mean that?
I do.
Not this is how you can, or this is one option.
I mean, I talk a lot of smack in there about how, hey, if it's not for you, don't worry. But I actually mean you should do it this way.
Okay.
I really do.
And I respect that.
I really do. And that's why I'm not afraid to call it a self-help book, because it's the first time where I feel like I'm putting myself out there in a way saying, I'm going to speak as an expert about this. Because people often come to me with questions that are so above my pay grade that I really can't. I mean, I want to help and be there, but I don't know how to advise people about problems with their children because I'm not a mother, and I don't know how to talk about women in the workforce in the corporate world because I've never worked in the corporate world. And there's a million things that people bring me that are really serious questions where I just think, I don't know, but I know you can get through it. Like, that's usually my answer. But if you want to talk about creativity, that's a place where I feel very confident to say, okay, let me tell you what to do. And it's probably the only place. I can't even meditation, spirituality, people come to me with those questions and I'm like, I have the sketchiest, lamest meditation practice. I'm not the person to ask, go talk to Pema Chodron about this. But this subject, I feel like this is what I do. And I do it in a way that is very pleasurable and very generative and very like it's just full of joy and work at the same time. So I thought, what if I just throw down and say, this is how you guys have to do your creativity, all of you. I mean, you might as well say it because people either will or won't, But I kind of secretly wish people would do it this way. Not so secretly now that we've said it here in the auditorium.
So let me instill a little fear in the audience. Right at the beginning, you have a Jack Gilbert quote. Jack Gilbert being the poet who has no relation to Liz Gilbert, although they had spiritual overlap and they almost shared an office. So the quote is, "Do you have the courage to bring forth the treasures that are hidden within you?" To which I would say, that's a really great point of fear, right? Do you have the courage to go down? Yeah. To me, when I read that quote, what I think is the reason, if you're afraid, you're afraid to go down there to find out that, in fact, there are not really jewels. There may be some rhinestones or little lumps of coal or something. But what if you spend your life feeling good about yourself because you feel like a really creative person, but if you had the courage to sit down and really do the hard work of chipping those jewels out and you find out not so great?
Well, I like rhinestones and lumps of coal. Truly. I'm really interested in them. And somebody said to me, I think it was an NPR interviewer said, aren't you afraid that your book is just going to encourage more talentless people to make more bad art? Which is a very, harsh...
I think that is what I'm asking.
I think that's what you're asking, but you're asking it in a nicer way.
In a nicer way.
You're asking it in a nicer way. And I will tell you, as a populist, which is what I am, and as somebody who's interested in people becoming, people in the process of becoming, people in the process of search, people in the study of themselves, people, as my guru in India used to say, becoming a scientist of their own experience, right? I think there's nothing more interesting you can do with your life than that. So for me, coming from that aspect of it, my issue with the world is not that there's too much bad art in it. My issue with the world is that there are millions and millions and millions of people who aren't making anything at all because they've been told that they don't have anything to say or to share or to do, or because they're afraid there's no point in it, or because they're afraid that they can't divorce the commercial aspect of it, and so they think, well, I'm never going to make a living at it, so why in the world would I do this? What other purpose would you possibly have for making a thing that possibly nobody wants? Those are the issues that I'm much more interested in than this is why I'm not a critic. This is why I'm not a teacher even, because it's not a comfortable position for me to sit around saying, this person is talented, this person isn't, you've got nothing, skip it. You have something maybe, I would never feel comfortable doing that. The world has humbled me out of that Because if I look back at 20 years ago and the people I hung out with, there were people who I would have bet the farm on, who I thought had everything. They had everything. They were shining with promise, and they did fucking nothing. They did nothing, and there were people who I dismissed and ignored and was arrogant and probably very rude about, who then blew my mind with something that they made that I could never have looked at them and seen was in there. I have a friend who said, I'm writing a novel. I was like, so cute, he's writing a novel. 20 years ago. I won't even say who it is. It's somebody who's a very renowned novelist. And when he showed this book to me and all of our friends, we thought, did he go hiking and find a cabin and there was a dead body and he moved the body and underneath it there was a manuscript? He couldn't have possibly. So having seen, really, we were like, where did he buy this? This is a person with no soul. This is a person with no imagination.
Who? You can do it this way, but I want to know.
Will you tell them if I don't want to get it out there? No, I can't, because I love him and he's dear, but he's tremendous. And so having seen that,
I forget.
Darren Strauss. The book was Chang and Eng.
Yeah, okay.
The book was Chang and Eng.
Yeah, okay.
And many wonderful books to come. And I shouldn't say he had no soul. He just didn't. That's going to go all over the fight. He's a friend of mine. But
can we just have a pact? Can we just be decent people
here
and say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas?
So what I'm saying is, the question to me that is the least interesting in the world is the question of talent for two reasons. One is because it can never be objectively measured. I have no idea how much writing talent I have. There's no way for me to know. All I know is that I've devoted myself to this as a craft from a very early age, and I've put years and years and years into it. What I'm interested in is, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I don't know what's in you. I don't know what's in people. I can't look at people and decide that. The interesting thing for me, and the most interesting way that I can go through the world, is to assume that everyone's got something fascinating in them. And it may not be a Pulitzer Prize winning novel, but I think it's a much more interesting way to go through the world than being like, no.
Okay, but I'm not talking about you judging someone or me judging someone. I'm talking about self-judgment. Mm-hmm. And it's going to fit into this next question. When I was in Provincetown 25 years ago, and I went away for 7 months and I wrote my first novel, and I decided that for one time in my life I was going to do my best work. I was going to go to the wall, and I wasn't going to write something and then say, well, if it hadn't been for this guy, or if it hadn't been for this job, or if it hadn't been for whatever, it would have been better if. Right. I was going to see what I had. And that's the judgment I'm talking about, not the judgment of the world. But when you look inside yourself and you see coal or you see rhinestones, if you make art, but you can always say to yourself, or you don't make art, and you'd say, well, if I had the time, if I had this, if I had that, it would have been so much better. You actually feel a lot better about yourself.
Do you?
Well, there's the question.
Because I disagree.
Well, because it can be really painful to sit down and look at yourself and think, it's not there.
Well, first of all, I don't know a single artist, myself included, who doesn't at times, or at many times, look in and see coal, right? So if that's the criteria by which you should stop working...
No, not stop working, but I'm just saying it's painful.
I have such a different view of this, it's remarkable. Like, we are so on the different side of the stage of this, because my view of it is so much more in line with the pain of not being a maker, and the pain of being the sort of frustration and the sort of flatlining of just being a witness, a bystander, a consumer. To me, that's much scarier. That's much scarier. And Brene Brown, are we all down with Brene Brown? You know, Brene Brown and I had a really interesting conversation about this on our podcast, on the last podcast I did with her, which was, she was fabulous on this. And I said, so what does creativity mean to you? This is a woman, if you don't know of her, who's a sociologist who studies vulnerability, shame, wholeheartedness, resilience. And one of the things that she discovered in her data is that creativity is actually, like expressing creativity, whether you're good at it or bad at it, whether it's diamonds or coal, is essential to a wholehearted life. And she said she would have never realized that years ago. And she said, if you had asked me 5-10 years ago, what do I think of creativity? I would have said, oh, that's very cute. I don't do ART, I've got a JOB.
Oh.
Which is, you know, just how she felt about it. She thought it was sort of, that's not, I have a real life. So I don't mess around with, have fun making your puppets, was basically what her opinion was. And she said the problem is that all of her research has shown that, and the line that she used that I love is, unused creativity is not benign. That your creativity is a sort of life force within you that's part of your human inheritance that 50,000 years of human beings have participated in at some level or another. And it's part of something that needs to be, it's an engine that needs to be going. And if you don't use it for something, it doesn't just idle in neutral. You know, it's as I say in here, having a creative mind, having a human mind, is like owning a border collie for a pet. You have to give that thing a job to do, or else it's going to find a job to do, and the job it finds you won't like. And so what I want, all I want is to let people let their border collie run a little bit, and then let's see what it is.
Do you think that that's also true for compassion, generosity, intellectual stimulation?
Unused virtue is not benign?
Yeah.
Yes, I would say so. Unused love is not benign.
Yeah.
You know, we are richly made and filled with remarkable mechanisms and software of feeling and sensitivity and emotion, and I think they need some space. And if they don't get it, I mean, my lived experience, I don't have the data that Brene has, but it matches my lived experience when I see lives of people sort of, they sort of take a gray pallor, and there's something, and then they can re-stimulate it. I mean, my favorite story that I tell in the book is of my friend Susan, who took up figure skating when she was in her 40s, and you wrote about it. I love that story too. Yes.
Go ahead, answer that question.
So my friend Susan was a very talented figure skater as a teenager. It was her life, it was her passion, it was her joy, and then she was informed one day, as very talented young people often are, off the ice. You'll never be an Olympian, you're done, bye, pack up your skates. And she got off I mean, what a system, first of all. So here, a young person who has devoted your entire life to this thing that you love more than anything else, we just realized and did the data that you're never gonna win a gold medal, so I guess you're done with this, good, see ya. And 25 years later, when she was in her 40s and feeling very drab and dull and sort of just uninspired, she did a big soul search and asked herself when the last time she had felt really alive was, really kind of in touch and invigorated and creative. And to her horror, she realized it hadn't been since she was 14 or 15 years old and she was figure skating. So she went and got some skates and found a rink and hired a coach, and 3 mornings a week before her demanding day job began, she would go and skate. And she didn't sell her house, didn't quit her job, didn't get divorced, didn't move to Toronto, and didn't win a world championship. She just gave herself back this thing that was the most efficient engine for her to feel a certain way that she couldn't seem to feel any other way. And what I don't tell in the story is everything else that opened up in her life after that. After that, then she was like, this job sucks. I need a better job. And so she got a better job, not in figure skating, just in the field that she was in publishing.
Is this Susan in San Francisco?
No. This is an editor who I used to work with at GQ. She's like, I'm tired of sitting in my pajamas eating cereal out of the box in front of the TV every night. I'm gonna start dating. She met her husband. She said, I've lived in this apartment since the year I graduated from college. I'm a 45-year-old woman. I deserve a better place with some sun, and I can afford it. All of this came from the figure skating, right? So that's what I'm talking about it doesn't have to be, and look, she was the only middle-aged woman on the ice with a bunch of feathery 9-year-old girls flying around her, and she was like, I don't care. I just want to be here because I can't feel this way any other way. That's what I'm interested in.
All right, but a big problem, if you read to the end of the index card, is that in writing,
right,
I'm always trying to tell people it is so beyond okay, beautiful, wonderful, important. You write because you love it. You don't need to publish. You don't need to make money. You write because you can't help but write. You love to write. It improves your life. But the desire to monetize the art, and I will only speak for writing, but I'm sure it's true all over the place, completely squashes the art in so many cases with so many people. When they say, I would like to do what you do, they're talking more about the living, the life.
Career, not
I
your
want
vocation.
your career.
I want your career, not
Or
your vocation.
not your art. Yeah. And what I love about the story of Susan is that is removed. Yeah. I don't care how good you are. If you are 40 years old, you are not ever going to be an Olympian. Doesn't make any difference. Yeah. Diana Nyad has really thrown a curve in this whole thing for me. But, you know, it's channel swimming for most of us is not going to be competitive at this point. How can we get that across to people?
Well, what I always, I mean, look, you can't take people's hope away from them, and you can't take people's dreams away from them, nor, I think I try to be as realistic as I possibly can be in this book and talk about, please don't bank on, please don't bank on this, please don't bank on that, please don't go into debt to become an artist. That's the number one rule that I have whenever anybody asks me for creative advice. First of all, please don't go into debt for a lot of things, but mostly, please do not go into debt to become an artist. It's not fair to you or to your art or to your creativity. Don't do that. There's no need to do that. We can speak as rationally as we can to people. The only thing I can do when I talk to people is to ask them, and here I'm going to go back up into sort of the magical thinking that's at the basis of so much of how I operate, because it's what I have to tell myself, is it's perfectly okay to have an ego. We all have one. The definition of your ego is it's a bottomless hole of desire. It can never be satisfied with anything. Your ego is the thing that will sell 20 million records and wonder why it wasn't 30 million, right? And that's... It can be satisfied for moments, but it can't be eternally satisfied. No matter what your ego gets, there's going to be another level where it wants more. It wants 5 of them. It wants them in blue. It wants it tomorrow morning. That's the definite. We all have this at some level in ourselves. So I had a letter on Facebook the other day from a young woman who said, I don't think it's fair for anybody to tell me that I shouldn't want to be a successful actress. I'm going to acting school and I want to be a successful actress. And I said, of course you want to be a successful actress. I wanted to be a successful writer. When I was your age, I wanted to be published. If I didn't want to be published, I wouldn't have bothered trying to get published. I would have just written in my bedroom and put it under my desk and been fine, but I wanted it to be seen. It's fine. But make sure you have, if you're not capable of having a stronger motive than that, make sure you at least have an additional one. Make sure you have an additional one, and let that additional one be something that has more to do with your soul than your ego, because you are also a soul. And your soul wants a bunch of different stuff than your ego wants. Your soul wants wonder, it wants becoming, it wants unfolding, it wants process, it wants connection, it wants some sort of sense of meaning. Those are the things your soul wants. And I have this lecture with myself all the time, so that when I get a bad review and I'm miffed about it and I feel like I've been misunderstood or worse, understood, and revealed in a way that I don't want to be, I can see this difference where I can check in with my ego, and my ego's wounded. It doesn't like it. I would like everybody to like everything I do. It hurts. I still don't like it after all these years. And I'll be like, ouch, that didn't feel good. I didn't want that. And then I check in with my soul and say, how you doing? And my soul's like, we're fine. Can we play more? Can we make another thing? I just want to make another thing. Let's do it again. Let's do another one. Let's do it differently. Let's try this. And that's, I can never totally circumvent my ego, but as long as I'm making sure to constantly check in with a richer and more interesting part of myself, then I feel like I'm all right. And that's the only thing I can ever tell people. And they will or will not hear it. They will or will not hear it. But that's what I've got to offer.
Something horrifying that happened to me 4 years ago on a stage in Australia, doing a panel. The moderator asked me what I thought about my brand. Did I ever tell you this story?
No.
What did I think about my brand? How did I cultivate and market my brand? It was a moment that changed my life in a terrible way, because until then I never knew that I had a brand. I had no idea. I never knew that word could be applied to me. I mean, I guess I thought Taylor Swift has a brand, but probably everybody under her were brandless. Yeah. So,
can I ask you how you answered it? What did you do in that moment?
I burst into tears and ran off the stage. I said, I was like, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to go into therapy for years before I can answer this question. I don't know. It really shook me up. It really, really shook me up. And it's sort of like a nasty thing that's been in my head because people will ask me to do things. When I interviewed Shirley MacLaine at TPAC a few months ago, and I actually came off the stage thinking, that probably wasn't good for my brand. And I hate having that thought. But your brand is enormous, and in I don't want to say it's in conflict with itself, but you are doing very different things. I understand how they're all connected, but you're a brilliant fiction writer. Your novels, your short stories, you are tops. And there are a lot of people who would say, writing self-help, even writing Eat, Pray, Love. I mean, as somebody who owns a bookstore, the people who don't like Eat, Pray, Love, when I would say, oh, Signature of All Things, this is the book that you would love. And they would say, oh, no, I'm not going to read her. I don't like Eat, Pray, Love. I said, did you read Eat, Pray, Love? No, I didn't. Oh, no, I didn't eat. And your brand takes you up. There are people who are going to read Signature of All Things because they loved Eat, Pray, Love, and your brand crashes you to the ground. And now on top of it, you've got this third thing, which is an enormous social media presence, which is a different kind of brand. Go for it. There's a question in there somewhere.
I hear you. Anne, I'm having the time of my life. I'm having the time of my life. And thank you. Here's the thing about what happened with Eat, Pray, Love. A bunch of stuff happened because of Eat, Pray, Love. I messed with my brand, what I had of one, by even writing that book. Because prior to that,
that's what I'm talking about.
I was not a well-known writer, but if I was known at all, I was known for a very certain kind of thing. I was known as a woman who wrote very sympathetically about men. Two of my first 3 books had the word men in the title, which says a lot about my 20s, first of all. But I was writing for GQ, I was writing for Spin.
And if you haven't read Last American Man, it's genius. I mean, honest to God, that is a genius book.
And I kind of blew that up. I knew that I was blowing that up to go and write a memoir about a woman's journey. I just knew that was it. And I felt I had no choice. I just thought, well, sorry, everybody. And this is literally what I was thinking as I was writing it. I was like, sorry, everybody. And by everybody, I meant like 5,000 people. But sorry, everybody, we may be done here. And you may never take me back again. But this is a book I really need to and want to write. So no one's going to like it, but here it is. So it didn't feel like a safe gambit to write that book. It felt like and I quit my job at GQ to go and do that. I lost all my credibility as a literary figure. I mean, it felt like a big risk. So obviously it turned out great. We all know. A couple things happened. One is, to be very frank, that book made me incredibly wealthy to the point that I can do whatever the fuck I want for the rest of my life. And so I will. Because the other thing it did is that it made everyone decide some stuff about me. And the great thing about that is that that's in concrete, essentially. So once enough people have decided what you are totally free. Because there's nothing you can do to alter their opinion of you. It's such an enormous waste of time anyway. But they're finished. They already decided. They're done. It's done. They're done with you. So do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. And those two things feel so liberating. And don't think I am not aware that, first of all, no woman in the history of my family has ever been independently wealthy. 2, very few female artists and creators have ever had that kind of freedom. And don't think I'm going to waste that by not doing whatever I want and taking whatever risks. And I think it's so great to write a self-help book right now. Right after Signature of All Things was just beginning they were just beginning to take me back. You know, they were just beginning to take me back, and now they're like, oh my God. And now basically a book that's a Facebook post, you know, like, and I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do right now. And so I have this. So my brand. There's a level at which your brand is put upon you by other people. You're not. I mean, unless you're a superb marketing genius, essentially your brand is what the public decides you are. And then just do whatever you want anyway. Who cares? You know, I mean, I have such freedom. Such freedom. And I don't want to, I mean, I'm not kidding when I say, I mean, the reason I wrote The Signature of All Things is because I thought there aren't a lot of women writers who have the time and the resources to spend 4 years writing a book about a 19th century virgin who spends her life studying moss and can afford to go to Tahiti and do this. I mean, I can do this, so I'm gonna do this. And people can come along with me or not, but I'm having a ball.
and I have to say, I have so much respect for you for that, but it is a bold thing. I had so many people tell me in the business who love Signature, you would have won a Pulitzer if it hadn't been for Eat, Pray, Love.
I don't need a Pulitzer.
No, I know you don't. I absolutely know that.
I don't need one.
But you are not managing your brand the way the world would manage your brand.
And I tell you, if I started managing it that way, I think it would go very badly. I had a conversation with the performance artist Sarah Jones recently, and she said the greatest thing that I've now been stealing and saying everywhere, but she said, at the moment of the beginning of creation, for her, not the beginning of creation, whenever you think that may have occurred. I was about to throw out a number, and then I was like, fill in the blank years ago. 4,000 years ago, but what she's talking about her own creation, right? And she said, there's a highway that I need to get on when I'm inspired and excited about something. And the minute I start thinking, can my agent sell this? Will people like it? Does this reflect my brand? Will my audience come along with me? She said, at that moment of the initiation of the creative journey, the second I have any of those thoughts, I have taken such a bad detour off that highway, and I'm gonna end up in a neighborhood, and this is her line where she said, where they're gonna beat me, rob me, and take the hubcaps off my car. That is where I'm gonna end up immediately after getting off the highway that I needed to be on, right? And I believe that enormously to be true.
You know, this is not the same thing, but it's sort of similar. I really believe in writing literary fiction, you have total freedom. Yeah. Total freedom. No one's looking. Yeah. Because, you know, the book that I wrote after Bel Canto, and I remember going out on tour and people saying, weren't you so terrified to write another book after a book that was really popular? And I was like, nobody reads these things. You know, I mean, honestly, even if it's 12 million people, in the scope of the world, it's kind of like, you know, and then it's over. Yeah. We're not curing cancer. We're not working out the malaria problem. And so I always sit down and feel like, oh my gosh, I can say whatever I want. I can hide in plain sight.
And we're not even, you know, I met Karen Slaughter, who writes mystery novels, when I was in Amsterdam on a book tour. That woman has sold something like 160 million books in her life.
The Wimpy Kid guy, 150 million. Captain Underpants, 80 million books.
I mean, you know,
what are we
you and
doing?
I accidentally...
We're just like putting peanut butter on toast.
You and I accidentally had a hit within the very small literary world, and then there's all this thing around that, right? We're so small scale compared to what... And that's
compared to Captain Underpants,
we are very
nothing.
small scale. I mean, to me, a lot of this conversation, not our conversation, but the sort of conversation around literary fiction reminds me of Kissinger's line about his answer when somebody said, why is the world of academia so vicious? And he said, because the stakes are so small. Yeah. You know, I mean, I truly don't care about a legacy because I won't be around to enjoy it.
I agree.
You know, I'm enjoying my life at this very moment, but when I'm dead, what possible benefit am I going to have from having any kind of legacy? Dead. It doesn't help me. I want to do stuff now, and I want to do the stuff that makes there's that wonderful Japanese word, ikigu. Is that it? Ikigu, your reason to get up in the morning?
It's so flattering that you're looking at there.
I'm like,
right?
who speaks
that Japanese word?
But it's that.
Could you help me
I know
out
it
here?
from my friend Rob Bell, but it's the reason that you wake up and go, what do we get to do today? What do we get to do today? What are you scared of now? Same thing I've always been scared of, confrontation, emotional confrontation with people I care about. That is remains the biggest fear of my life. And I'm getting so much better at it, but it's still very scary for me. And it doesn't have anything to do with creativity or what we're talking about on stage here, but there are certain conversations that are so almost impossible for me to have that it's easier for me to move to another country and never see that person again than it is to pick up the phone and say, that really hurt my feelings.
Wow.
It's very hard. So, but I'm getting there. I don't want to go to my grave with that. I want to be working on that my whole life.
We'll talk about that in the car later.
Now I'm terrified.
Is there anything that you're scared to do?
Creatively?
Well, no. I mean, this is in the list somewhere, but I think about the whole hunter-gatherer thing. Mm-hmm. And I think you are 100% hunter, and I am 100% gatherer. One of the reasons that I really think that we do this so well together is we are very good friends, and we arrive at the same destination, and our planes come in from the completely different sides of the airport. And yet I think we have a lot of respect for each other.
We meet in the airport lounge.
Lounge. I have so much respect for your hunter quality, both in how you live your life, that you will go anywhere with a backpack, not having any clue where you're going. And the conversation that we were having this afternoon about the hiking and bringing your father along on these incredibly long hikes and not knowing how long they were, and trudging, and I just think, God, I could never do that. And that sort of, I wouldn't want to. I always say my idea of taking a real risk is reading Proust in a straight-back chair. I am a gatherer. I will get your nuts and berries and put them in a basket and bring them back to the hearth. But it's also in your work. So you're always putting yourself out there. You are always on the journey. You are the hero's journey. And is any of that scary for you?
Yeah, all of it is scary. Well, is that true? Is it all scary?
No, it's not. It's scary for me. It's not scary for you.
It's more, here's the thing. I feel like I don't feel particularly physically courageous.
You told me in the car today that your goal was to walk for a year.
Yeah, but that's walking. I'm not going to surf. I'm not going to go skiing. I'm not going to,
You're going to not be home, and you're going to wear the same pair of underwear every day, and you're going to just
I do that even when I'm home, Anne. But yes, but yeah, anyway, here's the thing. My view of myself is, thank you for calling me a hunter, because that makes me feel like a sexy cougar, so thank you. But that is not actually how I perceive myself, because I think I still have a sort of a vision of myself as a child. I was always very timid and very fearful, and I feel like inside I still feel that way often. Here's what I feel like my saving grace is that as scared as I am and as tremulous as I often feel in the world, I'm just 1% more curious than I am afraid.
That's beautiful.
Just 1%. And you only have to be 1% more curious than afraid to do the thing. And so the curiosity just outweighs the fear.
Well, I have something all my life, the risk to pleasure ratio, what I really worked out when I lived in Montana. And every night on the local news, there would be new and interesting way that citizens died in Missoula. They did their hang glide and caught the downdraft. A cougar ate them in the parking lot, whatever. And I would always think, no, there is, the risk almost never outweighs the pleasure for me. That I think I would get more out of bungee jumping than I might get when the cord breaks and I I hit the bottom of the gulch.
But you creatively bungee jump, and you cliff dive as a novelist.
As a gatherer, yes. I creatively, no, I don't.
I don't know. We're losing this metaphor.
We're losing the thread. But I love what you're saying about curiosity.
I mean, that's, I think, and I talk a lot in this book about, another one of my guiding principles is curiosity over passion, because I think another way that people end up getting left out of creative life is that they're constantly being told to follow their passions. And I always feel terrible for graduates sitting in audiences where people tell them to follow their passion, and they're like, I don't even know what that is, if I have one. And
what direction did it go in? So how could I follow it?
I don't know. Or people who are sort of struggling on their own path at any age, and people will just sort of blithely say, well, yeah, just follow your passion, in that voice. And I feel like it's sometimes a very cruel piece of advice, and sometimes, and usually not very helpful, because the deal is this: if you have a central burning passion, odds are 10 to 1 you're already following it. That's kind of the definition of passion. That's what it means to have one, is you're doing it. If you don't have one, and somebody tells you to go find one, they're constantly sending you back to look in your purse for the car keys that you have said for 20 years are not in the purse. And they're just like, yeah, but did you look in the little side pocket in the purse?
Oh my God, have we ever done this before? That's one of my favorite metaphors.
Really?
I use that all the time. The keys are in the drawer. No, they're not. Go back and look again.
Really?
I didn't know that. One more. Look,
it's so
we're on
good.
the same page.
This big magic. And so for me, I just feel like, and we live in a passion fetishizing culture, and I think sometimes when people keep hearing that and then they keep saying, yeah, but I don't have that thing, then they think, well, I must not be special or matter, or maybe I'm just not supposed to be a thing. Maybe I'm just not a thing. Whatever a thing is, I guess I'm not one. And I feel like the more interesting life is the curiosity-driven life. The passion-driven life is all about sort of big signs and dramatic gestures and shaving your head and getting divorced and moving to Nepal and opening an orphanage, which most of us don't need to do this week. And the curiosity-driven life is the trail of breadcrumbs, which is available daily in a way that passion isn't. I think of myself as a very passion-driven person, but I can't access my passion every single day. But I can access my curiosity every single day. I mean, only when I was in the most savage jaws of deepest depression did that die. But even then, there was still a little ember of something that was even curious about how are we going to get out of this depression, Do
you know what's really funny? I think of that in terms of I can access my work ethic every single day.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which is just, again, coming at it from a different place. Yeah. I don't think about curiosity. I don't think about creativity. I don't think about passion.
You can access your discipline every day.
I can access my discipline every day. Yeah. I can get myself there and trust that if I sit down and sit there long enough, sooner or later, it may not be today, it will come.
What did David Carr say? You can type until it turns to writing?
I would buy that.
Yeah.
I really would. Tell me about Oprah and going out on tour with her and how that experience influenced this book, as I think it must have.
I'll tell you, to drop a name, I was talking to Oprah one day.
Oh, tell the story about the gym. I love that story so much.
She's incredible. She's extraordinary, and I will leave a room if someone says a bad thing about her. My loyalty to her and my respect for her is incredible, and I've always had that respect for her, but having spent some time around her now, that has returned to reverence because she is really, really extraordinary. The gym story is that I was in Seattle on book tour for Signature of All Things, and I had a time zone thing, so I woke up early because I'm on the East Coast time, but I was on the West Coast, so my husband, who never gets up early and who never travels with me, was with me. And we did a thing we have never done before or will ever do again in our life, which was go to a gym at 6:30 in the morning.
Even though you were so wild, were you rewarded? You'll never do it again?
Yeah, how are you going to beat that, though? Well, we walk into the gym at the Four Seasons Hotel in Seattle, and we do 10 minutes of exercise, which is about what we do when we go to the gym. And we're wrapping it up. We're up at minute 9, and we're like, we're good.
It's 6:40.
Let's go to the breakfast buffet now, right? And in walks Oprah Gail Winfrey with her bodyguard at 6:45. It's now 6:45. Crazy.
And you knew her because you'd been on her show.
Yeah, I'd been on her show twice at that point. That was all the interaction that we had had, but it was long ago, and 1.5 million people have been on her show, and she saw Jose and sort of smiled politely at him. And my husband, his real name's not Felipe, by the way. And then I saw her and I said, "Oprah, it's Liz Gilbert." And she said, "How are you?" And I said, I'm the one who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. I felt like I had to give her. She said, I know who you are, Liz. And then immediately, Jose and I started backing out of the room, bowing, like you would do with the Queen. And I just kept saying, I don't want to take your time. I know you have no privacy, and it's beautiful to see you. And she looked at Jose and said, "And you're the Brazilian husband I've been hearing so much about." She knows everything about everybody. She's amazing.
Well, and then she said that she got the bookstore to order more of your books.
She said I was in the bookstore in Santa Barbara and they were out of Signature of All Things, so I told them to order more. I was like, thanks, Mom. That's what my mom does.
Gee, I wonder if they did it.
She's extraordinary. Going on that tour, so she then did this tour and invited me, and our magical thinking about that is that she remembered me from the gym and was like, I should invite that Liz Gilbert.
The invitation came.
It came very shortly thereafter. And and my husband's theory is she saw how much fast you ran out of that room to leave her alone, and she thought, I could probably spend 6 weeks with her. And she's not going to be a problem. She's not going to bother me, because I just don't want to bother her. I have certain rules around her, and one is that I will never ask her for anything, and the other is I will never hand her anything, because people spend eternity putting things in her hands that is their dream. This is can you read? Will you support? Can you, and I just won't. But I will tell you the moment where I saw why she's Oprah Winfrey and nobody else is.
Please.
And it was in Newark, New Jersey at this event. So this was this huge tour she did with Iyanla Vanzant and Deepak Chopra and Rob Bell and me and her. And these stadiums, it was this ginormous thing. And she's at this stadium tour in Newark, New Jersey. And she says, there's a young woman in the audience who I would like to put the spotlight on for a minute. And she said, I can't remember her name, but let's say this is Natalie. Natalie's here with her family. Natalie is 14 years old, and she is a guest of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So you don't know what, but we all know what the Make-A-Wish Foundation is, and we all know that there's something very horrible happening to this girl and to this family. And so this bright, beautiful girl stands up and waves, and Oprah said, I got to meet her backstage, and she's so terrific and vivacious, and she loves music, and just gives her this moment that is so fantastic, and her parents are standing behind her crying, and it's beautiful. Great, that's terrific. A lot of people could do that. And then she says, and there's somebody else I'd like to introduce you to, who is also a remarkable young woman who I met backstage. Natalie's little sister, Tiffany, can you stand up? The 9-year-old. Who's the little sister of the dying girl and has been probably for years, and no one sees. And she said, can you stand up? I got to talk to Tiffany backstage. She loves horses. She's really good at math. She wants to be a scientist when she grows up. She's a fascinating young woman. I think she's going to be she reminds me of me when I was at her age. She loves to read, and she just put the light on the person that nobody else sees and pays attention to, because she has this 360-degree vision of empathy. And I was like, that's why you're that. That's what you do that nobody else would do. And totally self-generated thing. So she's amazing.
So did that tour have an effect on this book?
You know what it did, in that I told her, I've only had one personal conversation in my life with her, and it was at one point in that tour, and we were talking, and she said, what are you working on? And I told her I was working on this book about creativity, and she said, is it just a book for writers, or is it going to be a book that's useful for all people? And at that point, it was just a book for writers. And I was like, and I said, oh, it's going to be a book that's useful for all people. So yeah, she influenced it enormously.
Okay, we've been talking for an hour, so we have to. No, we have. You look above the exit sign up there. There's a glowy clock. So we have to make some decisions.
Let's make some decisions.
Do you want to take questions from the
Let's
audience?
take a couple questions from the
Okay,
audience.
and we're going to take a couple questions from the audience.
Here's
but
my rule. Do you have
wait,
rules?
I have rules.
Okay, cool. We're both such hard asses about this.
I know. Do you want to do yours and I'll do mine, or which way?
Here's what you don't do. You don't get up and say, it's not so much a question as it is a speech. It's not so much a question as it is a weird assault. It is not so much a question as it is a plea for you to read my manuscript. So don't do any of those things. Just if you have an actual question that is a real question, we will hear your question. That is my rule. Do you have a rule?
Mine's very similar. I say, if you're the crazy person in the audience, realize that about yourself and just hold yourself in your seat.
Oh, I'm so stealing that one, Anne.
Okay, one very brief non sequitur. I interviewed Sally Mann, actually both in Nashville, but also at Symphony Space in New York the day her book Hold Still came out, which is a fabulous book. But
so
Sally Mann wrote a memoir about her career. She's a photographer, and if the name sounds familiar, it's because she took those amazing naked pictures of her children that really rocked the world in the 80s. And so I said this, you know, if you're the crazy person, just hold on really tight and wait in your chair till we leave the theater. And everybody was great. They were so great, and the questions were so smart. And then at some point, this guy stands up, and he's crazy guy. And he's standing up, and he's going on and on about, you know, Sally's been persecuted all these years, and nobody's ever given her the chance to say that she loves her children. And he's going on, and he's so crazy. And we're up on stage, and she leans over, and she says to me, not on the mic, she goes, "It's my brother." Oh. And I said to her, "Out him immediately." And so she goes, "It's my brother, Bob, you can sit down now." And I said, "Who would have guessed crazy guy is actually Sally Mann's brother?" It was a really inappropriate thing to say. And she said to me later, "You know, my daughter Virginia said just the craziest thing to me after that event. She said that you said, 'Who would have guessed that crazy guy was Sally Mann's brother?' But you didn't say that."
Who would have said something like that?
I said, "Oh, Virginia, what a horrible thing. Anne wouldn't have said that." I was like, "Oh my God.
Oh my God.
And he was crazy, you know, like he really was. So, with all of that luggage behind you, who has a very succinct and specific that smacks? You've got sanity written all over you. Yellow scarf, yes. Just shout it out.
I'm a psycho magnet, so I'm not going to pick the person. Thank you so much. Let me repeat the question a bit, but it's the question's about something from Eat, Pray, Love, when you're in the jaws of depression and you're really in the darkness and the 1% of curiosity seems so far away. How do you push yourself through that? Here's the in the end, I started to think of it as this really weird, almost physical challenge, because I thought, this is really interesting. At the moment in your life where you feel the weakest and the most depleted and the most defeated, you have to summon the most strength. That's insane. What a weird system that is for how we transcend. And yet, again and again and again, when you speak to people who've been all the way down and come up, they'll talk of that being the truth and the reality of what it means. That somehow you have to find, when you have no strength, you have to find more strength than you'd ever needed in your entire life. It's tremendously ironic. It's also really interesting as a sort of psychological and almost physical challenge. And so what I would do is I started this thing where I would wake up in the morning, and I usually woke up, I had some of you who have depression and anxiety may know the 4:30 in the morning wake up, where you wake up in the gasping darkness and it's too late to take a sleeping pill and it's too early to get up and you're just being eaten by your thoughts and it's awful, it's the worst. And I would do a kind of CAT scan on myself. So, you know, when you go and get a CAT scan, what you're looking for is the one spot, right? Is that what a CAT scan's in radiology or x-rays are? Chest x-rays, you're looking for the one dark spot, which is the pathology. So when you're in severe depression, your whole body is pathology. Your whole life feels like a pathology, and you do this reverse CAT scan where you're looking for the cluster of 5 cells of light. That's what the challenge is. And so every morning when I would lay there, and it was a job to try to find the tumor of light, right, that was growing in a completely pathologized life. And then think, what can I give that? What can I feed that? I'm going to call it a tumor because I'm just doing this reverse metaphor, but what can I feed that today so that tomorrow it's like 8 cells, and the next day it's 10, and the next day it's 20? Because you can't push darkness out, you can only grow light. You can only grow light. So you have to find whatever, and the thing would be different every day. Sometimes it would be call somebody who you really care about, give something to someone. Practice some generosity today. Who can you give something to just to feel like you have something to offer, right? Who can you look in on? How can you exercise in a way that makes you feel some vitality again? What can you read that's inspiring? How about not listening to Leonard Cohen? How about maybe not watching Werner Herzog movies? How about crossing the street to walk in the sunlight deliberately? How about choice after choice after choice, seeing what you can feed that's a nutrient to get that light to grow? And for me, a big one was starting to study Italian, which is where Eat, Pray, Love really began. So I just thought, I need to replace some language. All the language in my head is so disruptive and so dark right now. So I need to put a new language in my head that has no bad memories. So I literally have to learn a new language. And I went to adult school for divorced ladies and started taking an Italian class so that I could literally have new words that didn't have any dark associations. So all of that is about, does that make sense? It's the biggest challenge of your life. It just seems so very helpless. But everyone who had ever been through it said the same thing, well, here's the game. You have to find all the strength in the world when you have none. Go. Wow. Intense.
It's beautiful. I want to get somebody over here because I haven't been facing away the whole time. Yes.
Well, I think the question is about changing conversations about creativity in the arts. I think we're living in an Etsy moment, and I'm so glad that we are, because that sort of exemplifies everything that I believe in and stand for.
Felting.
What's that?
Felting.
A lot of felting going on. A lot of coloring books. It's a big change in the cultural conversation around the arts. I got to tell you, one thing I'm really terrible about is huge social questions. Because I don't tend to see the world that way. I'm not good at that. My record so far in life for solving huge social issues is 0. I'm much better kind of at the questions of the individual than I am at the questions of the culture, because I feel like the culture gets so big I don't know how to deal with it.
But what about committed?
Oh, right. I take that back. I'm so good at writing. That is a big cultural question, isn't it?
Yeah, it really, and in a worldview cultural question.
Right.
That what she was asking about creativity is what you did with Marriage in Committed, which is another book that I really love. And if you know anybody who's thinking about getting married, give them that book, because it's such an incredible, thoughtful look at marriage all over the world.
Thank you.
So look, you did it.
I needed to write that book because I needed to figure that stuff out. And there are books that there are books that you want to write, and there are books that you need to write. And that was one I needed to write, because the only way I could change my thinking about marriage was to learn everything about it and then find a pathway to make myself feel comfortable with it.
Okay, so can you answer that question?
I don't know if I can. I don't know if I have an answer. I mean, it's hard for me to say I don't know, because that's a hard thing for me to say. I'm bad at it, but the truth is I don't know that I have a big vision on that. But thank you for asking.
How's the balcony? All the way in the very back row, yes. You have such a strong, authentic voice. How did you find it? That's a good question.
Thank you. I'm tempted to say by trying out a bunch of others first, right? The wonderful psychoanalyst Adam Phillips says that sometimes the only way we can learn, I mean, this is for me, this is how I've learned everything in my life. Sometimes the only way we can learn boundaries is to practice excess, to see where the boundaries are. Because otherwise you just don't know. And so I think it's almost the same way for me with, that's certainly been the case for me with most of the lessons that I've learned in my life, is that I was only able to learn them by going over the boundary of what was too much and then being like, oh, I guess that's where the line is. oh, that hurt and hurt a bunch of other people, back it up, And I think with my voice, it's a little bit the same. Practicing, certainly in my 20s, I was trying to write like everybody. I was trying to write like Annie Proulx for so long. Most of the stories in Pilgrims, I think, sound like Annie Proulx.
No, they don't.
Well, not for lack of, that's only because I wasn't doing a very good Annie Proulx imitation, but I was trying to.
I congratulate you.
Anne loves Annie Proulx's writing, you can see. I think I just tried a bunch of other voices, and then through that, and ultimately, I don't know, how did I get a strong, authentic voice?
I think it's actually DNA. No joke. I think it's like being tall, it's like being blonde, it's who you are.
I'm tall, blonde, strong, and authentic. I don't know. I think I played around with a lot. You didn't know me in my 20s. I played around with a lot of different identities. We were at the store today, and there was a jacket that I said, there was a period of my life when I would have worn that. Like, that's something I was going to be trying to pretend to be. So I think I had to pretend to be a bunch of stuff until I found my way to my real self. And I don't advise that. If you can do it another way, do it another way. But unfortunately, that's the only way I was ever able to figure it out.
And I just made eye contact with you, so yes. Can I jump in here? Because this is a question that I have in my lap. Talk about the Melville letter to Hawthorne. That was so helpful to me to read that.
Okay. I will, and I will also...
and repeat her question.
I will also say, I think you can value your work without jeopardizing your life. I valued my work through my entire 20s, and I never put myself in financial jeopardy over my work. When I talk about not quitting your job, I'm talking at the most real level about not putting yourself in a situation where you're going to be in trouble. And I have full faith in your resourcefulness as an adult, that you can do both of those things at the same time. And at the same time that I was working 3 jobs to pay the bills because I needed a roof I can't worry about, I grew up in a family where taking care of yourself was so valued, and it was so driven into me that if I start worrying about how I'm going to look after myself or where the money's going to come from next month, that's the only thing I can think about. So I needed to set myself up so that I didn't have to worry about that. So I needed to become my own patron, right? I needed to become my own sugar daddy, my own studio wife, my own grant writer. And the way I did that was by bartending and waiting tables and working in a bookstore and selling things in a flea market and doing journalism when I could get the work and all of that. Never did that devalue the work, because the work came before all of that even began. The work was setting the alarm an hour earlier. The way I valued my work was getting up an hour earlier and before I did any of those other jobs, doing my writing. So I could go tired to my bookstore job, but I wasn't going to go tired to my writing. Valuing the work meant every single week sending out another short story to another magazine, another request, another attempt. Valuing the work meant knocking on doors at magazines and saying, I'm a really good writer, you should hire me, I should have a job here. All of that could be done at the same time as making sure that I didn't go under. Do you understand what I mean? So I don't see them as being, in fact, I actually think that there's a tremendous honor that you come into, and sort of bone building that you come into by supporting yourself, that will make you stronger as an artist, that will make you more powerful and more confident as an artist. So do both. The answer is yes, both, if that makes sense.
And also, think of it as being in love. If you have 3 jobs and you are in love with somebody, you are going to see that person. You're going to find those minutes, and it's never going to feel like a burden. And you're never going to quit your job so you have more time to spend with your lover. Everybody understands that that's craziness, but I've wouldn't miss it.
No. Again, you have to go to the excess to find the boundary. But you're absolutely right. And no one who was ever having an affair had their lover who they haven't seen in a week call and say, I'm in town, I have an hour. And they said, I'm a little busy. Like when you're in love, you find that hour, you make it. The Melville story is a letter that Melville wrote to Hawthorne. They were pen pals, not unlike us, Anne. And it's this heartbreaking letter where he just said, I am pulled hither and thither by circumstance. He just, and the whole, I only put a piece of it in Big Magic, but there's a whole long letter where he just is laying out all his burdens, all his responsibilities, all his troubles. Everybody wants a piece of him. He has no time. And he said, I'm longing for the cool summer green grass, uninterrupted days in which a man should compose. And I put this in Big Magic to say, this is the desire that never goes away. I don't know a single artist, no matter how successful they are, who doesn't long for this Edenic dream of some sort of utopian thing that's going to happen someday, where all the obstacles and all the responsibilities are going to be removed, and you're just going to be given this eternity of slow, languid, warm summer green grass growing days in which to focus completely on creativity. No one ever gets that. No one ever gets that. Melville never got it, and he wrote Moby Dick anyway. He wrote it anyway. He did it the way we write our books. I wrote today, I had 20 minutes before I met you here, and I worked on my novel. And I'm on book tour, and that's how much time I had. And it's not ideal. This is not an ideal circumstance in which to be working on a novel.
You could have left UAL a little earlier.
No, I had obligations. My life is so full of demands, Anne. I had to try on all those pants.
You could have gone into the dressing room and just sat down. Liz Gilbert, why don't you tell us why you won't be having a signing line tonight?
Okay, so here's the situation, you guys. My book tour began in the middle of September in New York City, and it ends in the middle of December in Germany. And along the way, I'm going to 6 countries. And I don't even know how many cities. I haven't had the stomach to look at the number of them. And this is something I want to do. And it's something I particularly want to do with this book, because I feel like if you write a manifesto, then you should bring your manifesto into the world, right? You should go out there and sort of like stand tall for your manifesto. And I want to bring this book to as many audiences as I possibly can. But as I was planning this tour and looking at what the demands of that tour was going to be, I realized that the only way I was going to be able to do that and get through it without getting sick, and you and I know about getting sick on book tour, it happens usually every book tour for us, is...
Usually by the third city.
Was to be very real and honest with myself about the limits of my energies and my capacities, what I can physically and emotionally do when I'm going from airplane to airplane and city to city and hotel and venue to venue. And so I decided that for the first time, I've been on tour for books for over 20 years now, and this is the first tour where I'm not going to be doing a book signing line, and we won't be doing selfies, and I won't be meeting you face to face. And this was a really hard decision for me to make, because I know that some of you come great distances, and there's things that you want to say, and there's a moment that you want to have. And so the 2 things that I want to do now, one of them is to formally explain why I'm not doing it, which I just did, and to ask your forgiveness for it, and I hope that you'll understand and not throw bottles at me. And the second thing is that I want to close with this idea and take you out on this, because I'm 46 years old, and I'm starting to finally get real about what I can and cannot do. Again, pushing over the boundaries into the excess before you realize where the line has to be. And the reason that I wanted to tell everybody personally why I'm not doing the book signing line is, one, to
Although
apologize.
the books are all signed.
They're all signed. Oh, here's what I did do. I went to a warehouse in the middle of Maryland this summer for 3 days, and I signed 20,000 copies of Big Magic to make sure that everybody gets a signed copy. So I didn't totally abandon you. But the other reason I want to talk about it is that when I did that Facebook shout out 2 years ago, and I asked you or whoever of you were on that Facebook page, if you're not practicing your creativity, why are you not? One of the main things that came up again and again and again was people saying, I don't have time. I don't have energy. By the time I've given everything that I give, at the end of the day, there's absolutely nothing left. I'm being sort of eaten by my life, and that time isn't there. And so I hope that you'll take this example of this thing that I had to say no to that disappointed a lot of people, and allow yourself to walk out of here thinking about what in your life you might have to start saying no to, even at the risk of disappointing people that you care about, even at the risk of maybe not being as loved, in order to create the space and the time to do the thing that you keep saying you want to do, right? Because we don't have all the time in the world. And the only way you're going to get that time is to make it. And the only way you're going to make it is to start saying no to a bunch of other stuff. And look, if the no was easy, you would have said it a long time ago, right? So the things that you might have to start saying no to might be very difficult and very hard for you to say no to. But they have to be done. And I'm somebody who never said no until I was, I think, 34, was, I think, the first time that word came out of my mouth, which again explains a lot about my 20s. But I didn't know I didn't know you could. And the reason, and it's such an interesting thing because the reason I never said no, I'm a big pleaser and I want everybody to be happy and I want to be liked and I want to be loved. The reason I never said no to people for so many years was because I didn't want people to be disappointed and I didn't want people to like me less. That's quite frankly why I said yes to everything. And then I finally hit a wall where I realized I had to start setting boundaries in my life or even learning what they were. And what I realized when I started saying no to people, it was actually really amazing. So I'd had this huge fear that if you say no to people, they won't like you as much and they'll be disappointed. When I started saying no to people, what I discovered was that they don't like you as much and they get really disappointed. It's totally true. There's a reason I never did it, because everything that I feared comes to pass. People don't like it. I don't like being said no to, right? Nobody likes being said. If there's something you want from someone and they say no, you don't like it. It's just a fact of life. And yet, part of maturity and part of honoring the limited energies that you have is being able to allow another person to stand in their disappointment and being able to observe it and feel it even and say, I recognize that this is disappointing for you and I'm going to let you have that because I need to hold this no, because I'm not going to be here forever. And there's stuff I want to do, and there's a way I want to feel. And I'm not doing that stuff, and I'm not feeling that way, and it has to start now. So that's what I'd like to invite you all to think about as you walk out. Thank you. And thank you for not throwing bottles at me. I appreciate it.
You want to sing? You guys want to sing?
Will you sing a song with me? And Anne?
Sure.
And then we actually do have to go, and Jane, meet me up here.
And Jane is going to come and sing with us.
Jane, where is Jane? Can you come sing?
Come on up. Jane Hamilton, everybody. Oh,
Where is she?
where is she? She left 15
Oh, there
minutes
she
in.
is. I'm giving Jane my microphone.
So on this book tour, one thing I've been doing instead of the book signing line is I've been doing a song at the end of the night and asking everybody to sing. Brene Brown says, come on, Jane Hamilton. She's so awesome.
America's famous novelist crawling onto the stage.
Hi, Janie.
I'm not wearing your outfit. I had to do something sort of extreme just to,
You're awesome.
Yeah, right. Hey,
Do you have your phone?
That was wonderful.
Thank
that was
you, sweetheart.
So good, both of you. I'm just here to say that was really great. I don't know.
2 out of 3. I was going to say, 2 of the best female novelists in the world are on this stage right now. I'm not going to say who. Do you have your phone with you so we can get the lyrics?
We only called you up here for your
Oh, you
And
want
for
my
your voice.
phone. Okay, yeah.
Cool. So here's why I'm doing this. There's something that happens when people sing together that can't happen any other way. And it is Nashville. And you guys probably sing more than other cities, so I'm expecting good stuff. Unless you go to church, unless you sing in a band, you probably don't do public singing, and public singing is really important. One of the things that Brene found in her research about wholeheartedness is wholehearted people sing and dance. And she kept trying to bury that data because it freaked her out. And her graduate students kept saying, Brene, how come you never publish, and she said, I don't want to talk about the singing and the dancing. So I saw Brene 2 weeks ago, and we sang together. We sang "I Will Survive," which was fantastic, with a bunch of women in an audience. It was really great. So what we're going to sing tonight, if you would all take out your devices, because I know you have them, what you're going to do is you're going to Google lyrics, "Take Me Home, Country Road, John Denver," which is my go-to karaoke song, because it has 3 notes, and anybody can sing.
And we know most of the words anyway.
That's what we're going to do, and then we're going to walk out of here.
Then we're going to walk out.
Don't let me down, Nashville. I want hands in the air. I want people standing up. Will you stand up? I kind of basically
A little
know it.
preparation would have been, well, you kind of basically know it because
I
you've
kinda
been
basically
singing
know
it every
I sing
night.
it. Well, I also sing it every Wednesday at the Rat Karaoke Bar in Frenchtown, New Jersey, in the basement, where my friends and I plan days in advance what our song list is going to be for karaoke because it's very important to us. Here we go.
Here we go.
Okay. Can I get coming in the middle?
Yes.
I
What's our
can't.
pitch?
I can't.
I'm going to sing it low,
Yeah, you get in the middle because I can't even see.
and then
Maybe we can make it big.
everybody can join in.
I'll jump in.
You'll jump in. She's got it.
jump in.
I got it. We got it. Ready? Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, blowing like a breeze. Country road, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mount Mama, take me home, country road. Someone's harmonizing so beautifully. All my memories gather round her. Miner's lady, stranger to blue water. Everyone does. Dark and dusty, painted on the sky. Misty taste of moonshine, teardrops in my eye. Country road, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mount Mama, take me home, country roads. I hear her voice in the morning hour. She calls me. Radio reminds me of my home far away. And driving down the road, I get a feeling that I should have been home yesterday. Yesterday, country road, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mount Mama, take me home, country road. One more time. Country road, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mount Mama, take me home, country road. Oh, won't you take me home, country road.
That was